Hey, what is everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about the current events, such as the state of our dystopia, September 2025, Neofeud, alism update. Okay, so anyways, I haven't talked about current events and the present on this channel in a bit, so I figured why not get back to that. Then a whole bunch of video game related updates and things related to science fiction TV shows and movies and other works of fiction. But how about the nonfiction? I haven't talked about that specifically directly in a while, so I figure I would kind of make a video that kind of just focuses on that. Obviously, current events pop into the discussion at various times, but I haven't focused on that in a bit. Sorry, I'm just setting up my chat computer here. So anyways, so what is going on? Hopefully this is not gonna be a video that's too long either. It's just to kind of take the temperature of the every time I set up, I gotta change my cameras. Playing camera, musical chairs, camera location, microphone location, height. So, anyways, when I jump between the various platforms, cracks in the U.S. economy, job growth slows to 75% from a year ago. That's like just one of the recent updates I was reading. The short answer obviously is when I say our dystopia, obviously talking about U.S. places like that. It's not all bad news everywhere, but in the U.S. definitely. I was just reading several job reports. I don't want to just focus on what the news has said, because that itself is a problem. Particularly corporate media. But it is true that the economy is not doing well. And like we're talking about the economy, I made my little red arrow in part because I've been working on and thinking a lot about Terminus Machina, which has a red and black and very very red theme. There's like red downward pointing lines, like crashing stock tickers, like S&P 500 plunges is like a theme of it, and that's what's happening. The U.S. dollar is crashing. The U.S. Total job growth, jobs are crashing. Employment is crashing. People's incomes are crashing. Everything is just bad. It's not good. Well, it's actually good in the long term. It's good for the greater majority of the people of the earth. Not good for the U.S. Not good for the West, collective West in general. People are not buying things that are American. Anything that is labeled insignia, if it has a Star Spangled Banner on it, if it says made in America, American brands, all these things, these are globally taking a hit. Tourism into the U.S., people visiting to the U.S. is all down. Trading with the U.S. is all down. Some people that believe that there is some kind of grand master plan behind that. Speaking of Neofeud, would say that this is a short-term pain that will cause a long-term gain and boom later on, right? I don't believe that, actually. Things could improve in the future, but it's not. This is not for a particular. To my mind, this is not part of some kind of plan. If things get better in the future, it will take a lot of people taking a lot of actions. Let's be really vague right now. But yeah, it will take a whole lot of work to get this thing off the ground. But yeah, so a lot of people that I know that are around, maybe not, yeah, some people I know personally, they've lost a lot of jobs. Like there's a lot of grants in the kind of public, academic, government, nonprofit, environmental, etc. sector. A lot of jobs that were created by grants, because grants is government money that does pay, is given out, that does support the livelihoods of people, right? Now you could debate whether those jobs were necessary, whether the work that they were doing is worthwhile to the economy. Which there's some work which the U.S. government does. Well, there's a lot, which is like that what people are doing is not the best thing. But like just one easy example, National Science Foundation. Like, I mean, I'm a native Hawaiian person with a particular perspective. I have some criticisms of how science and technology is used and deployed and in various contexts. Under a longer historical colonial perspective. At the same time, we need science. I believe we need science. We need science, technology, engineering, mathematics. The pursuit of knowledge is not a bad thing, right? And just disbanding, getting rid of science and people's engagement and work in science, because it is work to do science. Just getting rid of the National Science Foundation, and then the government support of science, just overall, and knowledge work even more generally. That is a huge. That is one big. That is a piece of this collapsing U.S. economy, because you're losing thousands, if not millions, of jobs, and the knock-on impact of that is even more. People not making money, people not working, not getting money, not spending money, which means more businesses are not making money, which they're laying off people, and then you have a downward spiral, right? That's part of this terminus machina tailspin that the U.S. is in. That there's no plan to get out of it. No, there's no plan. There's I don't know if I brought this up on this stream or if it was on Twitch, but I said, like, the idea that they're like the belief that MAGA and Trump has a plan to this is a plan to, this is like surgery. Like, it hurts the way that a scalpel hurts when it's cutting into you, or they give you the shot to numb the area where they're going to do open heart surgery. That it can hurt, right? But after they do the open heart surgery, then your heart is fixed, your arteries are unclogged, you have a quadruple bypass, and your cardiac arrest is no longer a problem, right? So it's supposed to be like short-term pain for a long-term greater benefit. I don't think that's the appropriate metaphor. I mean, like, it's more like, it just, this current government is looting more directly than others and more haphazardly, and I think the metaphor shouldn't be like a surgery that hurts in the short term that makes you better because it gets rid of I don't know, keep some tumor tissue or save you from a heart attack, right? I don't think that's the appropriate metaphor. It's more like a mugger, right, that is punching you in the stomach or like stabbing you with a knife and taking your wallet, right? You don't say, oh, well, in the short term, the mugger is gonna, cause me massive abdominal pain, and he's cutting my shoulder and my arm because he's gonna build me a better wallet and fill it with more money, right? That's not how mugging works. Like, if somebody's robbing a bank, oh, well, this bank robber, he's short term, like, pistol whipping me in the face and taking everything out of the bank teller's registers, and he's filling his duffel bags with gold bars. Oh, he's gonna fill the bank with more money later, right? That's more like what it is, right? So the U.S. is gonna take short term pain, and then it's gonna be in long term bigger pain. You know, it's not coming back. There's no plan to come back. I have earlier this year I made a thread about if you really want to build a U.S. economy of some kind. I made a whole 10+ point plan of all the things you would need to do that. So I can find that. Let's see. Probably, I think I might have. See. No. One more time. Maybe that'll work. Oh, maybe not. Okay. You got it? Okay. I'll go get it from Holly. Okay. So, if the U.S. really wanted to industrialize, just in case you missed this one, what the U.S. would need to do is overturn the plutocracy of wealthy elites that control the government and all aspects of society. They're making more dollars with private equity, selling hype, and being a tapeworm in the anemic economy than making things. Okay, number one. Okay, number two, give industrial laborers a good deal. In China, workers at factories get free housing, free quality meals, and save an equivalent of $3,500 per month making phones, clothes, in purchasing power parity adjusted terms, which is what matters. If the U.S. upended its capitalist slave-loving oligarchy, it could eventually do this. Trump administration, the U.S. government now, the U.S. in general is not doing any of that. Root out classist, racist culture. It lies in stigmas about unskilled immigrant agriculture and assembly workers that benefit privilege straight out of white collar society. Keep the BS office job, aka non-essential labor aristocracy, lording it up and hurting productive jobs. None of that's happening. It's getting more racist in the United States. They just attacked the Kamehameha schools because it supports Hawaiians, because of a lot of inequities due to colonization and U.S. occupation, and the opposite. None of that is happening. None of that is happening, right? There's just crying farm owners. They're crying non-immigrant MAGA farm owners. They're not doing anything to change anything about their society in terms of classism and racism. So that's a fail. Rebuild intergenerational trust. While boomers got a house, Thunderbird, and cheap meds working one job, millennials plus work two jobs to rent a moldy closet from landlord Steve, walking to work and never going to hospital. Everyone is tired and hate work as a whole. Do actual education. China has fully roboticized AI automated facilities, turning out flying cars. Teachers have been screwed. See number two, kids graduate illiterate. Colleges are hedge funds masked as places of learning. H-1B brains clued into the erroneous American dream, and they're not coming to America anymore. Nobody's coming to America. Chinese and Indians are not coming to America. India was one of the last, slightly more, of the big major countries in the major Eurasian landmass that was somewhat friendly to the U.S. That's done. They're fully with BRICS, Russia, China, SCO. They're with the non-Western, not U.S. aligned world. That's done. That's game over. Public health. So again, what I'm saying is, if you believe that, right, what is currently happening under this current government, and I would argue this is not new, but it's accelerated under Trump. This is not going to bring your economy back. It's going to implode it faster and harder. It's short-term pain. It's some short-term pain for a whole lot of long-term pain. It's not short-term pain for a long-term benefit. Short-term pain for mega long-term annihilation. It's not to say there's nothing could be done, but this is not this is a great idea, Do actual education. China, I already said that. Okay, so public health. Everyone's had a BSL-3 level pathogen shred their cells, omeletify their neurons, and are perma-hacking with COVID-induced AIDS. That's for real, though. Acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Look it up. Holly has links. Millions are so unwell that they can barely do keyboard busy work, and you want them sewing clothes or engineering Unitary grade robots. That's just sick and impossible, never going to happen under the current circumstance. Use tech appropriately. Bad word salad, Gen AI, writing emails and doing schoolwork degrades intellect creativity, pollutes infosphere and with disinfo, and wastes energy and CPU needed to help cure cancer, streamline EV production, and automate vertical farms like China does. I mean, if you want to see that's the economy that's growing. By the way, another important fact, speaking of economic collapse, China has not seen a single recession in multiple decades. That's one way you actually know they're not actually doing capitalism, relative to, unlike the U.S. and the whole West, Europe, Canada, etc., which are constantly seeing recessions on average, as Richard Wolff points out, a Western Marxist economist, every 4 to 7 years on average. 0809 financial crisis, the big collapse during the COVID era, but it's just a rolling basically recession economically in terms of jobs. It's never been good since 2020. And before that, you had the 0809 financial crisis, you had the dot-com bubble burst, you had before that savings and loan, and there's just there's constant crises, constant implosions. China hasn't seen any of that. They've just been constantly growing. Like 5% is like people. There's all this Gordon Chang stuff about China's collapsing under a communist party and socialism with Chinese characteristics. And according to the West, the whole West, I'm talking about 2,000 years, and certainly the last 100, 200 years, the idea is that system can't work. I'm actually reading Ayn Rand's Anthem right now. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I'm not reading it because I like it. I'm just reading it to see what kind of interesting ideas. I'm trying to be nice about it right now, but I know I kind of feel reading that thread. But long story short, they have not seen a recession in multiple decades because they're not capitalists in the U.S. and the West is. And they're going to keep collapsing and imploding as long as an oligarchy, again, like I said, a tiny minority of people who control the economy, the government, the education, everything. Whether that's Trump or Biden or Democrat or Republican, it's never changed hands. And that looting and that exploitation and that corruption of everything, and certainly the economy's working for the 1%, not the 99%, hasn't changed. And it's only because China was the world's largest economy for 2,000 years, and then only for about 150 it wasn't, so due to the colonial era, and now it's reversed. Now it's back to normal. This is actually the normal state of the world. It's not normal to have a tiny minority of less than 10% of the world's population from Western Europe and the United States, and particularly like this tiny beltway of the United States and a handful of other capitals controlling the entire planet's economy. That's not normal, and that's done. So this is not just a U.S. economic recession. This is a collapse of a 500-year colonial capitalist system. That's the bigger story. That is not something you cannot fix that. Nobody in the U.S., nobody in the whole West this is unprecedented. Nobody has had to face a 500-year realignment. That's bigger than just a dot-com bust. It's bigger than just a savings and loan crisis. This is not just, it's definitely worse than an 0809 financial crisis with a global financial meltdown, right? And everyone being thrown on the street, Occupy Wall Street, banksters running away with everything, as there's a major loss of jobs. It's worse than the Great Depression. It's going to be worse than the Great Depression. I'm not saying that you're going to have to be in the situation of the Great Depression and people starving, as there's huge dust bowls and just total collapse of society. But the Great Depression didn't undo the colonial capitalist global structure. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a whole other level of global change. It's like the difference between a storm and a hurricane. It's the difference between like a windy day and a hurricane. Or it's probably bigger than that. So that's the other thing we got to keep in mind. This is not just, while I'm talking about the news. This lack of job growth is not. It is a current event that's part of events this year, but it's also it's part of a much bigger, longer term shift. What's up, Grant? That's not going to be. It's not going to be dealt with. It is not going to be dealt with. It cannot be dealt with in any of the ways that any of the certainly the last 100 years of economic problems. You can't just throw some stimulus at this problem. That would actually be better than nothing. The opposite is happening. The stimulus, the government spending is dropping, right? But even that's not, that is not a deep enough change. Like I said, if the U.S. is having a heart attack and you need to have open heart surgery, right? Which it is. The U.S. and the whole West, the whole Western first world, the Euro, American, Canadian, New Zealand, Australia, and its vassals, that whole system, the imperial capitalist colonizer world is having a massive heart attack. And Trump is not doing surgery. He's not repairing the U.S. The U.S. is having a heart attack, and Donald Trump is just stealing everything out of his pockets. It's like a rich guy having a heart attack, and the Trump administration is punching the guy. Oh, you're having a heart attack? Let me throw you on the ground and take all your wallet. It's not going to heal the U.S. It's not going to heal anything. It's going to collapse further. So, anyway. So, short the U.S., short all the U.S. dollar, short all Western corporations and everything. If you're in that, obviously what people should have been doing is what we frequently say, which is people should be building people power in their own orgs, build individual and then collective sovereignty economically, politically, every way you can, because the center is not holding. And it's not just the center, it's not just the center for this government, this 4 years. It's not the center. It's not even for this country, right? It is a global realignment. Just one example. France's debt, not just the U.S., France's debt has been going up by multi-millions of dollars per hour. And the amount of millions is going up every single day, right? In very closely correlated proportion to the rate at which Africa is no longer sending cocoa, uranium, gold, or allowing it to be stolen from them, right? Which is part of that story, right? So all of that looting, like they say, Europe is gonna potentially be in a worse situation than the United States, because they're a vassal of the United States. They have no sovereignty whatsoever. They're collapsing economically. They don't have they don't have any resources. They can't steal resources from Africa as they have been doing for 500 years. We don't have any products to export, so that's just a nightmare over there. And the U.S. is not looking a whole lot better, right? So the reorganization of this is going to be, almost like not millennial. Like millennials are going to kill capital. Like millennials are killing golf. Millennials are killing capitalism. So not like people who were born in the 80s and 90s. But this is like a millennial with a IEL. This is like a millennium scale change that's going to happen. Potentially, it's like the change that would never have happened for ever in the Western world. It's going to be like a psychological, social. It's going to be like a change of heart, like open heart surgery where the doctor has to cut into your aorta and open up your ventricles, and pieces of your internal organs are all over, and your guts are all over the table, right? People's American and European and Western brains and souls and hearts are going to be all over the place. People can't deal with this. Because part of this, that system has relied upon some people's, countries, systems, particular peoples and countries and genders being better than others, right? That's 2,000 plus years of Western history. None of that has ever changed, right? In the last 70 years, it's relied on. There are the good, free Western countries. The 500 years of colonialism there's the powerful, better, more quote unquote civilized European countries, and then there's the quote unquote savage, uncivilized Asia, Africa, Americas, right? As we usually talk about indigenous peoples of the world, non-white peoples of the world. That whole idea, that's deep. That's deep. That's deep in the mind, heart, soul, business, politics. That's in everything. Even in the liberals who want to act like we're all one happy family holding hands, right? There's still an expectation but we can still kind of get away. We can still have our token black and brown people in charge, but we still, people of our us, the other is it's much more coded in the liberal world, but there's still a supremacy in that. But we kind of still we'll run the show, and we feel less bad about running the entire planet with 90% of the black, brown, and Asian people suffering under us. Liberals, not talking about conservatives, not talking about Trump, talking about liberals. And we can kind of get away with that and just not think about the racism inherent in a billion starving Africans. And we can not just think about the racism inherent in Democrats saying, and even Obama saying, well, we can't have China rise because imagine if China had a middle class. Like, who would make all our stuff? Right? Like we can't allow a competitor to capitalism and imperialism. We can't allow any pure competitor to the US, because how would we extract everything that we want from anyone else we want on the planet at any time we want while pretending to be good people? That is going bye-bye. That's thank God. But that's not something that can be dealt with. Like after the savings and loan crisis, everyone, let's go shop and let's buy some Super Nintendos, After the dot-com crisis, it's like George W. Bush, right? Let's go out and shop. There's not going to be a go out and shop solution. 08, 09 financial crisis. Everyone go buy an iPhone and watch Elon Musk's doppelganger in Iron Man. Watch some Avengers, and that'll get our economy going. We'll just buy a bunch of stuff. If America and Europe and Canada and Australia all go to the mall, that will stop our economic hard times. We just buy a lot of Starbucks and Gap clothes and buy a few more Funko Pops, right? And if you just shop a little harder, just buy another PS4. We'll buy the latest Call of Duty game and take a vacation and go to Disneyland. And that'll fix that's not it. It's not going to do it. That has been the solution for the last basically forever. But if we do, it's like that relies on getting other people to make more stuff for you, extract more from the gold. What it actually was is, let's go out to deal with our recession at home. Let's start another war and steal another $1 trillion, from somewhere in the Arab world. Let's steal another, billions of Congolese diamonds. Let's steal some more South American fossil fuel. Let's invade Venezuela. Like the U.S. is trying to do now. Like it's a big joke, but they're trying to do that. Let's go and take the entire U.S. and Western coalition and NATO militaries. Let's sell all our aircraft carriers to Venezuela, right? But that has been the solution. Well, if we run out of money, if our economy is doing bad, let's beat up on everyone else, take some more of their stuff, sprinkle it back on our mainstream citizens, tell them all to go shop some more. Find some more sweatshop laborers to pump out more toys for us to buy, and then they'll fix it. That's not happening. So anyway, that's the unfortunate news. The good news is that that whole system was sick. That whole system was deeply, deeply, deeply. That was the greatest sustained long-term evil the Earth has ever seen, arguably. The bad news is, it's like the doctor. It's like, okay, well now, do you want to get in shape, or do you want to, just die? You can keep smoking and driving at 90 miles per hour. You're going to die soon. Anyway. Okay. Let's get back to this list though. Okay. So use tech appropriately. Bad word salad, Gen AI writing emails and doing schoolwork degrades intellect and creativity, pollutes the infosphere, and is sinful and wastes energy. That the AI is part of the reason why this is happening. Some of this is AI, right? Or what the malfunctioning, badly programmed, absolutely wasteful, hyper immoral software they call AI, produced by entities like OpenAI. That's not even open. and the usual suspects that we talk about frequently on these streams. And so because that is not doing any actually economically useful work, right? It's making everyone less able to do their work because they're getting poor educations, because everyone's cheating. I mean, kids and college students are cheating. Let's just call it what it is. They're cheating. They're not using their minds. They're not exercising the thing they need to actually produce economic output. And companies are not producing more work. Actually, there's actual Danish studies that showed that the amount of productivity, the amount of speaking to economic activity, the amount of economic output you get using AI in workplaces. There's thousands of workers, accountants, writers, lawyers. AI is mostly white collar, right? It's like office work, but it's not blue collar as much. The artists, other kind of workers that do creative intellectual work. They had like 1,000 plus people in this scientific analysis, and what they found is that like AI produces almost no tangible, like visible benefit, like maybe 2% productivity for some workers. It actually is minus 30%. Software programmers, coders that use generative AI to help them with code saw a minus 30% of like functional code per hour worked. They actually dropped by like a third their productivity using Gen AI. I know several programmers. I am a programmer. I don't use Gen AI, but I know some programmers have been forced by I don't work. Cyberspook is an economically sovereign and politically sovereign native Hawaiian run anti-capitalist cooperative. So we don't have the problem of being forced to use Gen AI. But I know coders that work for corporations. One of them works for like a marketing, like a news website, and they were forced. The programmers were all forced to use by their higher ups, their bosses, the executives, the CEOs. They were forced to use generative AI in their coding, and they said they ended up. My friend, just this anecdotally, he said, I ended up spending 3 times as long to write code. I could have wrote, it took 3 days to accomplish a programming task that would have took me 1 day without AI. Because I had to basically take the output of the AI. By the time I finished editing and correcting all of its problems, I'd spend more time than if I did it from scratch, right? So that's all just a giant scam. Gen AI is just a giant boondoggle. It's like worse than the F-35. Because the F-35 doesn't necessarily destroy your entire society's capacity to think and do work, right? It just kind of crashes into the bay off the coast of San Francisco and just kind of falls off the side of a USS war criminal in the Red Sea because you lost to the poorest Arab country, Yemen, as the U.S. empire does. So anyways, so that's part of it, though. That's part of it. So if you're wasting people's time and energy, right, with this non-productive software, so it's 2%, but the amount that people are being paid and their long-term productivity is actually down 8%. So maybe 2% increase of productivity of workers using the so-called AI, but in the longer term, it actually reduces, because part of it you have to factor in when people start using AI. The bosses start firing people we have AI workers to replace them, right? But then what you find is that like when they later on in the short term, it seems like a solution. Then like there's a myriad of examples of this. Just one of them is what was that company? Not Klaxon. What is that company called? Klarna, right? Klarna, Klarna had to reassign workers back. Human workers had to be put back after they lost $100 billion. They lost like a massive amount of money because the CEO decided he had to fire all these workers, because he said, well, we have AI now, so we don't need all these hundreds of workers. The AI it does output, right? And that looked good on paper. That looked good to investors, right? But ultimately, the AI was not competent to do the actual economic output, and it was not writing the proper report. It was not, judging who was deserving or not deserving of a loan appropriately. It wasn't doing all that work that humans were doing, right? So then the humans all had to be hired back. So another thing is, if a company uses AI, the AI produces something, right? But then that something has to be thrown out and then humans hired back. Every time you lay off or fire a human or 1,000 or 100, right? Those people, the productivity to get them back, to get them back up to speed, right? The change, all that turmoil, right, in the company, in the workforce, that's going to cost the economy as well, right? Because you have all these people losing jobs. That in the 3 to 4 months that those Klarna employees or other employees lost their jobs, they're not spending money. Their bills are not being paid, right? That's causing a massive dislocation that's going to harm the economy itself. So the cost of AI is beyond just, it actually doesn't help workers very much at all. It's arguably we could say maybe it helps them zero. It's like basically nothing, or negative. But then the justification of, well, we can replace workers with AI, the fact that people believe that, right? It's kind of like if you're driving a truck, right? And then you're like, oh, I don't need to be in the truck. I can let my dog drive. I'm just to use AI. If AI is like a dog driving a truck, it's like, okay, that's not going to work. If you're driving a truck in a straight line, let's say you're hauling like bales of hay, and you're like, well, I can drive the tractor, but my dog can drive the tractor, and you're like, okay, that's not going to. Somebody's criticizing that. That's not going to work though. You can't just put a dog in a tractor. A dog can't drive that. And you're like, well, look, I drive the tractor, and I can move like 50 bales of hay or whatever, hauling it across X distance. But if I get out of the tractor and I can go, I can start do fertilizing in another field, and I'll let the dog drive the tractor, right? And so Rover, the golden retriever, yellow Rover gets in the tractor, and you're just like, so if you align a tractor and this tractor is going in a straight line, right, from like where the hay bales are to the storage, a barn area or whatever. If it's a straight line and the dog just sits there and does nothing, and you already started it up, right? I mean, think about AI. You're already doing what the AI is putting out. Like if you say, okay, we need I need a job interview, right? So AI, do this job interview, and it the first time if you just look at it from the outside, okay, it kind of looks like it's interviewing people pretty well, right? I've seen these AI job interviews, but then like in the same way, if you turn the tractor on, you put the tractor into second or third gear or whatever it needs to be in, right? You push the gas pedal down, right? And you like had the dog sit on the gas pedal, right? It would seem like the dog is driving the tractor for a while. If it's going in a straight line, it might seem like the dog is driving the tractor, right? Now, if the dog has to stop at the barn and unload the hay, then it's okay. Well, later on, maybe the dog can't drive the tractor, right? Now that's a little bit more obvious, but I'm saying AI is like that, right? If the tractor is moving and nobody is thinking about what's going to happen when you actually have to do some more serious, competent, licensed tractor driving, right? Then it can seem like the dog is successfully driving a tractor, right? For the first few months, it can seem like AI is successfully replacing 500 workers at Klarna, or like 300 workers at this bank or this corporation or this, whatever, this healthcare facility. The AI is replacing therapists and doctors. The AI is replacing human resources, job interviewers, right? It can seem like that's working, right? And then months later, but this is all that capitalists care about, which is the way the West is run, the US is run. Months later, oh my God, it's kind of catastrophic losses. Oh my God, thousands of people are killing themselves and actually even committing mass unaliving of others because the AI is telling them to kill specific people with addresses, names, birth dates, and hair colors and eye colors that are on their Discord and Facebook friends list. I'm not joking, that really happens. And it's like, oh, maybe we can't use AI for that. But like the dog crashing into the barn, right? Like the dog crashing into the barn because you thought dogs could drive tractors because some people are that gullible when it comes to AI because you watch too much iRobot and you play too much Deus Ex and watch too much Battlestar Galactica. Mea culpa, I'm a science fiction writer, so we have to Silver Spook do better. That's my goal for the coming years. I gotta. Anyway, when the dog crashes into the barn, then you'll realize, too late, that you have made a mistake, right? By putting what seemed like a capable employee, a dog, into the position of tractor driver, right? So similarly, when you put generative AI, open AI software agents, who seem to some gullible people, read a lot of society, unfortunately. When you put Gen AI, when you put the robot, Sam Altman's robot girl, or Elon Musk's Grimes anime girlfriend lookalike, into the seat of everyone's therapist, or when you put that AI into the seat of running a big loan-based semi-banking business like Klarna, right? It might seem like it's working until it crashes into the barn. That's 3 months later. That's the loss of $100 billion, and that's the collapse, right? So in that time, right, the actual U.S. economy has been shrinking because the output is the quality of the output for every single person that is using that kind of AI. I mean, there's ways to use AI that's beneficial, but the U.S., the West, is doing. China is doing that, but the U.S. is not doing that. They don't want to do that. They don't care about economic output, right? They care about pretending like there's economic output. It's called neo-feudal implosion, collapse our capitalism, right? Not making a Boeing 737, but saying that you did, or making a broken one, is easier and cheaper, and it makes you more money. And when the collapse happens, like the dog crashing into the barn, in the displaced temporal, with the temporal displacement, right? Which by the time that CEO is already gone, right? That's the way that the U.S. and the West, that's how they have been run for the last 20 years, approximately. Certainly since 08, 09. Definitely, there's arguments to be made since Reaganomics in the 80s and the neoliberal era, which is about cannibalizing yourself and your industries, and giving money to professional paper pushers, quants, number game players, and people who, the high priests of economic, the economic Vatican, like, Larry Summers and Ben Bernanke, you talk about, the infinite great moderation in which there will never be a collapse again. This is the funny thing, is actually like a lot of the lead Western economic thinkers, right? They write papers that sound the best to billionaires, right? Like literally, that's how he got his job. One of the heads of Western capitalism, Ben Bernanke, was the chairman of the Federal Reserve in the noughties, and he wrote a paper before he got that job called The Great Moderation. It's kind of like Ayn Rand saying, "Oh yes, selfish individualism and is the best thing ever, and collectivism, communism, socialism is all the great evil." That's like basically her Atlas Shrugged anthem point. It's really mediocre to poorly written, but it says, like Mencius Moldbug and Curtis Yarvin to Peter Thiel, saying, "Oh yes, neo-feudal kings and the return of kings and the end of plurality, and that's the best thing ever, buddy. Let me kneel down and kiss your ring." Right? If you say in poorly written screeds exactly what the richest, most powerful people want to hear, and they happen to be near you somehow, like Ayn Rand is like throwing her books at Wall Streeters, and one of them picked it up and like, "I like that idea. Here's a whole ton of money, and I'll give you the biggest microphone in the world." It's called the Western Publishing and Western Radio. You're going to be radio for Ayn Rand, like TIA jukebox is going to play the Ayn Rand tune. It's going to play the Mencius Moldbug tune. That's what they're playing now. The Curtis Yarvin neo-feudalism tune. It's the, neo-feud is actually partially based on all of those TESCREAL, Silicon Valley, failed sons of empire desiring the return of feudalism, because to them democracy and progressiveness and accepting a whole range of people, races, and genders, that didn't work. So we have to go back to the 1700s. But as long as you say the right thing to the people at the top, it's another problem with the system, which is that it's run by these kinds of people, right? Where if you just butter their egos and you happen to get lucky, you can just like be the thought leader for the entire Western so-called free world. Anyways, so that's a whole problem in and of itself. That's you can't, if you're stealing from the whole planet, you can run a supremacist capitalist empire. We can run a snow-colored supremacist capitalist plutocracy that is based upon vacuuming the resources from all the world's colonies. You can run it absolutely foolishly. Just you can put dogs in the tractor seat. You can crash planes like Boeing planes. You can wreck your own economy, right? Like a 0809 financial crisis. You can afford to do that, right? Or the savings and loan, or the Great Depression, or the dot-com burst, or the collapse in the last 5 years. It's been a lot of just ongoing recession. You can have Great Recession. You can afford to do that, right? Because what the solution is not. It seems like it's go out and shop, but it's not really go out and shop. It's we'll just go steal some more wealth from Africa. We'll have a few more 1,000 Congolese children dig up some more diamonds for us, and get some coltan for us. We'll make some iPhones, and we'll have India, China can't. If China doesn't want to do it for us anymore, well, or they're not doing exactly what we have India do it. We'll get someone to do it. We'll just get someone to do it. The way Peter Navarro was just like, India. You did the Ukraine war, and you have to stop buying Russian oil. Like that the way that he said that is so interesting. That's the West. That's the U.S. That's Britain. That's France. India, stop eating. You're all eating. You're reproducing like bunnies, and you're eating too much. It's not because Britain is stealing the wealth of India, including the agricultural products, and then 27 million Indians started in the Bengal famine. No, it's just you're eating too much, right? So the Peter Navarro, India, it's ahistorical. It's immoral. It's apolitical. It's ill-advised, right? But the head of the United States empire, the collective Western capitalist, imperialist, white supremacist empire, he just came out and said this week, India, you need to stop buying Russian oil because, I said so. Don't you see how immoral you're being? Right? And India's like, well, that's not in our interest. And it's like, well, everybody does what's in our interest because we run the world. It's not, the West don't say that, but that is what it is, right? We're having economic bad times. So 27 million Indians starve so we can feel better we screwed our economy up. So now you take more of your food. That's basically Britain, right? We screwed our economy up. We're trying to fight. Britain and France are fighting over colonies. So 27 million of you got to starve so we can feed our troops. It's kind of like Americans are starving so they can send money and weapons, right, into the West Asian settler colony and commit more human rights atrocities there. We got to send all our weapons and money into Ukraine because, if we don't do that, that's how we're going to keep, we gotta keep taking. That's the problem is when you take too much from the global South, and then you can't even win the plunder colonial wars anymore. And you can't win your proxy wars. You can't win these. You can't control this flow anymore, right? Then that's things breaking apart. Like that's really things breaking apart. And Africa is saying, no, we're not going to be part of that. Brazil and Asia is working together in BRICS. Brazil and Nigeria just had a new decision to more closely economically cooperate. The wealth isn't flowing north anymore. The wealth, the resources, the goods are not just flowing north for free anymore. Asia isn't just bending over and doing whatever Uncle Sam said. And what Europe and the West, whatever DC and London and Brussels and Paris says, they're not just going to do that. They're like, no, I am not going to cause. The US also asked India, said, India, you have to buy American agricultural products. 60% of India is poor farmers that would like to be less poor. If India has to buy all these American agricultural products, that seems like, oh, well, that's great, right? That would actually hurt a lot of the Indian farmers who would then be, where are they going to sell their goods? That would cause more suffering for them. But the rest of the world has to take the pain because the United States and the West, put a dog in the tractor and crash it into their own barn, right? Oh, well, we accidentally spread a BSL-3 pathogen that we possibly created in one of America's 300 plus bioweapons labs in Fort Detrick. We just love all the research we got from Unit 731 and airbrushing all of Imperial Fascist Japan's crimes just to get a whole bunch of their biological weapons data that involved mass unaliving of people and atrocities, including, that's how 70% it's known that 70% of the human body is made of water is because of these Japanese war crimes against the Chinese and a lot of Asia in particular. And we spread a pathogen. I mean, wherever the COVID came from, everyone getting sick and reinfected, 5, 6, 7. By the way, the virus that's not gone is currently it's growing. The amount of it is growing in the wastewater in at least 30 states. Okay, so mask up. I'm just gonna say, okay. But like when people get sick and die, and you have estimates of 30% or more of the entire population has long COVID, that's massive economic implosion. And that's part of why the AI was rolled out, is to hide a collapse of 30% of your workforce. And that's why that was one of these points. You don't have public health, and now you put RFK in charge. You have like the antichrist of anti-public health in charge. That is not. If you have brainworms, you need brain surgery that removes the brainworms. Like the heart attack metaphor, right? And with the MAGA administration and the Trump administration, he's doing the open heart surgery economy, he's doing the brain surgery. You have somebody with brainworms who believes that children swimming in sewage will make them healthy and the weak will die. It's like, it's even more. I mean, the Democrats did a really bad job. And then you have just like straight up anti-public health. He's this guy, he literally has admitted he has words with his brain. You want to have pariah. You have all of these worms. You have all these Lumbricidae. You got all of these Dune, like mini Shai Huluds, from Dune. The thing that the Kwisatz Haderach, Paul Atreides rides. They're all banking and swishing around like the miniature version inside of RFK's brain, right? And he's supposed to do the brain surgery to remove the worms from other people's brains. No, he's like, what you need is more worms, right? They're like, what you need? What you need is more COVID omeletifying your neurons and taking all of your dendrites and your axons, just like fraying all their ends, just like the worms that eat my brain, right? That's not, you know what I'm saying? That's not gonna make you. That's not going to help, right? So you this is still going around. As I already said, right? This is causing more and more unwellness. All the people that I know that are around people frequently, they're all sick all the time. They're just sick all the time. They're just like always sniffling, always coughing, and it's like it doesn't even register anymore to a lot of those people. That's not normal. It's just like, well, obviously we're just always sick and always our nose is always stuffed. We're always coughing, and then when we get really sick, then we like go to the hospital. But like we're just always sick, and that's not normal. That is not normal. And you say, well, that's just a little cold. That's a little AIDS. That's a little human immune deficiency. That's a acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Well, number one, that's not just a little cold. You can get a cold, and that will, you could have that too. But like that is a sink on the economy, right? Because people are not producing the actual output they need to be producing. Okay, and then you try to solve that with AI. So like the COVID, the virus plus the AI, two epic fails for the economy. That's like it's like taking the dog, right? Well, it's kind of like the COVID is kind of like you swam in raw sewage and you got cholera. And then you try to drive the tractor, and oh my God, you couldn't drive it because you're dying from cholera, and you're trying to or you're in the hospital because you got some horrible gangrene, right? Because you listened to your brilliant, fearless health leaders, and then you got catastrophic illness from swimming in sewage. You can't drive your tractor anymore, and then the response to you're too sick to drive the tractor because of public health failures. and then you put your dog, and you say, Rover, Old Yeller, Bork Bork, Mr. Bork Bork, he's gonna drive the tractor because I'm too sick. And that seemed okay until Old Yeller crashed that tractor into the barn, and that's September 2025, and that's it's really great to see. It's not great to see, but that's basically it. I mean, those are that's how like those two interact, because you want to pretend like 30, or it could be 50%. I think there's some estimates that it could be 60, 70, because not everybody who self-diagnoses, self-admits, and or is medically diagnosed with long COVID has it. There's more people that have it. I'm just a little more tired. I just can't remember how to spell my own name. That's just, everybody forgets how to spell their own name at 25. That's normal. Right? Just like everyone being sick all year is normal. That's not normal. Not normal. It's not normal. I don't know if you forgot how to spell your own name and you need to hear that, that's not normal. You need some help. Not from RFK. So you need some help, not from your public health experts. I'll tell you that. I don't know who can help you. Some the COVID cautious community and some mass block, people, real leftists who support their comrades by not spreading these things. They might be able to help you a bit. But you're kind of screwed. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, if you have permanent if you have brain damage from that kind of thing, is your brain, you can still like learn things and improve, but the things that you have lost is not just going to come back. That's not really how the kind of damage, the fusing of neurons, and the when you have like neuron death due to like these kind of ripped blood vessels and destroyed brain tissue. That's not really how, if you got like hit really hard on the head, and you get brain damage, but like a lot of the information that was stored in the neurons is gone. A lot of the knowledge of how to use Excel. There's people that I know personally that they can't support us on Patreon anymore because they said, I can't do Excel. I can't do Microsoft Word anymore. I can't type. I can't code anymore. I can't do my white collar job. I can't literally, I know for a fact that 30% or more of the economic activity that was supporting us at the Silver Spook Games is gone, or those people have lost their jobs because they have long COVID, and they have brain damage, and they have MECFS, or chronic fatigue syndrome, and that causes like inability. I mean, I know there's a whole other streams you can go watch that we've done about what all these impacts are. I don't have time to do all of that, but like you can't run, you can't walk for more than an hour a day potentially. You can't think. I know people who like they're around us and they can't use their brain. I mean, they cannot think. They cannot watch Netflix for more than half an hour a day. They used to play like games, but gaming is too much. The lights and the sounds and the moving 3D image, and all the gun shooting and all that, processing all of that overloads their system in like half an hour or 15 minutes. Okay, so they cannot do work, and they're like 30 years old. Okay, that's from getting COVID repeatedly. Maybe not the first time, but maybe another one. You know what I'm saying? That's obviously that's loss of quality of life, and that's catastrophic and horrible. That person, that's a 30-year-old, they were a very skilled and talented programmer. They're a very, very skilled, very, very smart person, very productive person. They can't do anything now. They can do very little now. Can't code, can't write, can't read certain words, can't be active for more than a few hours a day. That's a huge, huge, huge chunks of the society that's gone. And then AI was the dog they put in the tractor for all those millions of people that can't do the work they used to do, driving that white collar tractor. It is also the blue collar tractor, but a lot of it is like these people that were doing work that needed to be done. A lot of it is the people that actually need to do their code, programming, IT stuff. They can't do that anymore. Teaching, university, stuff like that. Now all of that work that was being done is being done by a dog. The dog is not doing the work either. You know what I'm saying? The AI is not doing the work. The AI is pretending to do the work so that CEOs for this quarter can take bonuses based upon massive profit margin increases due to millions of less salary being paid. This happened in the 80s, right? But it's worse than that because you can't just bring all those people back. You've destroyed those people. You've destroyed those people. You destroyed their brains and their bodies and their minds and their immune systems. They're not coming back. They're not coming back. You can stop destroying more people if people take the freaking ongoing pandemic seriously. It's just one of the list of things. That's why it's an important one in the list. I mean, I feel if you really want to deal with that, you got to stop allowing such catastrophic failures of everyone's health generally. Okay, anyways, stop wasting resources on wars, genocides, and colonial plunder. It was always immoral enslaving kids in cobalt mines. I kind of talked about it already. So it'll be impossible with BRICS. No more stolen. Soon it will be impossible with BRICS. I said soon it will be impossible with BRICS, right? I was gonna get that update. In April, I said soon it will be possible. How did we get here and how dangerous is it? France Prime Minister Francois Bayrou warned France excessive debt puts it in danger, right? They have massive 44 billion euro debt and it's swelling. And I said this, I predicted in April, right? It was already happening, but it's really accelerating now. The ability to use resources on wars, mass atrocities, to steal and plunder other countries of all their resources, and to cheap labor, oil and diamonds and uranium. And again, much of West Africa is just a giant French treasure chest that they steal from all the Africans based upon a lot of anti-blackness and colonial history. They just steal from. They've been doing that. 99% of Nigeria's uranium, 99% of, and it's not just France. Canada relies on all that stolen wealth. Barrick Gold is one of the biggest gold mining corporations. They relied on plundering Mali and Burkina Faso. And Mali and Burkina Faso are saying, take a hike, get out of here. It's our gold now, right? So Canada is going down the tubes too. All of the West, any imperial country is going down the drain. There is no, we'll just send an aircraft carrier. We'll just coup someone. We'll just give a bunch of weapons to some radicalized group secretly and make it look like it wasn't us. France is trying to do that. They're actually getting caught. I'll give you an example of that. The U.S. and France are getting caught before they can even get it done. They tried to get into North Korea. That was hilarious, and it completely blew it. I mean, it's not funny. They killed a lot of innocent people, but they failed to do that. They're going to try to do Venezuela. It's not going to work. I mean, maybe people will suffer and die, but it's not going to work for reasons I don't have time to go into. But I just saw recently today. I'll come back to that. Yeah, a satellite video of Sahel showing a French military copter providing supplies to the Terrorist in northern Mali. The same France that lied to Mali for over a decade that it was helping that nation in a fight against these extremist disruptors, right? But it's the U.S. and France, and France is getting caught here because they're a little more. They're having a little harder being covert about it. But the U.S. is the same one that supplies all these people around the world to disrupt these countries. But now Mali has satellite networks. They have advanced military. You can't just go to Africa anymore. And it's not the U.S. and the West that have helped them get that. By the way, it's members of BRICS, in particular RIC, especially the R and the C, that have helped them to get to that point. And that's not going back. That's not going back. It's the end. It's the end, gringo. Venezuela is ready. You want to play with Venezuela, gringo, with Russian guns, we wait. We will be your Latin American Vietnam. We Carib Indians are ready to die. So, I mean, the United States is going to go to hell. It's not going to win that. You got beaten by the poorest Arab country. Venezuela is not the poorest Latin American country. And they have Russian and Chinese missiles. They have Dongfeng. They have Russian and Chinese and North Korean support. You can't. This is not the 1980s anymore. There's this channel, Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. They're doing all these the Imperial 80s reviewing like RoboCop at Red Dawn. If America wants Red Dawn, you might get one. If you faffle around in Central South America too much nowadays, you're gonna find out a lot more than you used to. That's not gonna work. And like this is what I'm saying. This is how the United States has historically solved its recessions and its economic downturns. Stealing a bunch of wealth from someone else, telling everyone to go shop based upon all of the tchotchkes they pumped out from the extra stolen wealth. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? And so what is the response? What is the response in America? Arkansas farmers are praying for help because Trump is killing their farms. I mean, it's like I know it's like I don't want to be like but it's like listen to some of this.
Until the federal government steps in to save them, farmers have no one to turn to but God.
Farmers, in my opinion, dear Lord, and it's only my opinion, they're closer to
did I finish let me finish the list. I'll come back to that. There's really a million things. Yeah, no more stealing resources and quote unquote cheap migrants. China spends on infrastructure and people, in the U.S. on bombing and hospitals. China under socialism spends on infrastructure and people, U.S. on bombing and hospitals and plundering, and giving inside their own countries the rich control of the entire society over even their own internal masses. There's really a million things that are needed for U.S. reindustrialization, but the most important is probably number one: get rid of the parasites. They are being externally, they are being removed externally by real neo-colonization and de-dollarization, but it will take mass organization and struggle internally to deworm, right? Just like RFK's brainworms, that's never going to get rewormed. He's going to die with those in his head, chewing on his amygdala. And so this is a perfect example, right? And it's not just the rich. I mean, a lot of MAGA, let's be real, there's a lot of racism there, right? We're going to make America a pure country again. That's why that Virginia-based entity is attacking Kamehameha schools. I mean, I'm not even a big fan of Kamehameha schools, but they're just attacking because there are some programs that were made to help benefit Hawaiian people and Hawaiian children. And they're like, that's DEI, woke, something. This is basically white supremacy, or it's just, it's unfair that certain people that are not white get anything. The criticism I have of Kamehameha schools is actually, they're basically like a extended Pacific arm of Goldman Sachs in a lot of ways. They're in bed with a lot of the biggest in Wall Street, and have been actually a boarding school themselves that was about removing indigenous culture and characteristics from people of Hawaii. And but this is an attack coming from outside, in Hawaii. And obviously there's been all these attacks on anything that kind of feels like it could be affirmative action, anything that seems to help Black, brown, non-white people, indigenous people, women, queer people, right? That's who MAGA was. We got to go after them. And once we get rid of the woke and the DI, and all of this, women and people of color getting this stuff for free, then we're going to be great. That's just like, and like that is that conservative narrative. That's false. That's just false. And, Arkansas, in that sense, Arkansas was like, we'll put, Trump is the dog, right? Trump is Rover. Right, it's kind of like, I know we'll put Trump is a big attack dog. He's like a big bulldog. He's gonna go, beat up all of those, not white people that's stealing all our stuff, basically. And America's gonna be great. All those immigrants are all gonna get beat up, and they put, a big bulldog. They put the big mastiff Trump in the tractor, and they drove it at their farm. These are farmers, right? And Trump, Trump doesn't care about your farm. He's not a farmer. He isn't a farmer. He's a real estate developer. He doesn't know how to drive an economy. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about anything but himself, obviously, right? Just like these people in a lot of ways. And And now Trump he's your big, MAGA bulldog. He crashed it into your farm, and now you're screwed. And that's why I said, like, all of the internal organs and intestine, the heart and the soul and the mind and the spirit, America and the West is going to be stripped nude for all the world to see. And it's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be embarrassing. It is embarrassing. You're like praying to God to save your farms. Your farm you're fucked. You're fucked, period. You have been fucked by others, and now you have helped others fuck you. And now the United States and the white male Western world is burning, and it's going to keep burning, and your farm is not coming back. This is part of it's actually deep. This is a deep, long Western problem. The Greek society was based upon like Hellenic men, basically white men, having in-house servants. That was the wife, while he did all the thinking and like running things because he was smarter and better. Every white man, Hellenic man, and then the African, Asian, basically black and brown slaves, Persians, some people would have been Ethiopian, 2,000 years ago. They did all the work. They brought slaves in, and the slaves did the work of growing the grapes, picking the grapes, doing all that hard toil in their fields. When Aristotle, and his friends put olive oil on their lettuce, the lettuce was harvested by black and brown hands, and the olives were also harvested and crushed not by them. They just thought to themselves, and they pontificated about how virtuous they were, right? And that's why the United States modeled itself, right, on Greek society, right? The so-called democracy with the Senate, blah, 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 right? They even had the fluted columns, those white columns of the U.S. Capitol. Those are based upon the Greco-Roman architecture, right? But that was all immoral. That was all racist. That was all colonial and capitalist. And that was all temporary. And that's what America is based on. A lot of these, white male farmers and business owners, some of the smaller business owners for sure. The richer, bigger New Yorker ones, the liberal ones, are more based upon the imperial leaders at the top of the pyramid, of the Caesars and the London kings and queens and the banking heads, right? The big titans. But the mass of smaller business owners, smaller farmers that rely on brown immigrant labor, which some of them admit it. Like they say, without Mexican and Honduran and South and Central American immigrants, our farms are not going to run. They actually begged Trump to stop deporting immigrants in their states because whether it was white Texas farmers or white Arkansas or Mississippi, like ranchers in Texas, like tomato farmers in a southwestern state, people, the folks that are, working at Coke Foods, or the Coke Foods themselves, and all these other Republican areas or Democrat areas too. When you start deporting, right, all of your immigrant, non-white, or they're not white enough, or whatever that counts as, right? These people shouldn't be in our country. We got to get them out here, right? You start deporting those people, they stop showing up for work, your farms collapse, right? It's also the incoherency of that system, right? Which is like, these people are just so. It's the same thing as Churchill saying, those lazy Indians. Without the Indians doing all that labor, you wouldn't have all that food to feed anyone, right? But it's the hubris, it's the ignorance, it's the duplicity, it's the racism, it's the injustice, it's the inequality, it's the projection, it's the hypocrisy, it's the lying, it's the deceit, and the duplicitousness, the treacherousness, all of that, the crookedness of thousands of years of the Western world. I would say the Western world, but in various, the capitalist, colonialist, racist, all the systems, that has had compradors and participants from other places as well, but it's always been led from Europe and then the United States, which is the United States is a settler colony. It's a Euro settler colony of visitors, and now they're praying to God for help, but God is not going to help you. God is not going to help you with this. The idea that you could pray to your Christian God, right, while you're abusing your workers, mistreating your wife and children, using your wife like the Greeks did as in-house servants and slaves, mistreating your children, and expecting to get away with that. That can only work. You can only have a mass of incompetent, terrible people, right? That's the white masses under the white Western leadership, not running their businesses well, berating their people. But you have to be able to. That only works if you can control the entire world and suck, again, trillions of dollars in, right? Then you can have the liberals crashing their companies with non-functioning AI dog drivers, and you can have farmers that are like creating policy that's defeating themselves, because then they're gonna come back to church and pray. And like when a conservative prays to God in church, their wishes have gotten granted. Because the United States and the Western military will go, oh, it's okay, little MAGA. I'm going to go out to Africa and India and starve them and steal their stuff and blow up some countries in the Arab world. And we're going to solidify the petrodollar. It'll be okay, little boy. And you can say that, oh, your prayers worked. Your prayers worked. Because for the billionaire class that keeps all the masses, it's the opiate of the masses. It's their conservative, Catholic, or whatever religion they got. And for the liberals, they have the opiate of the intelligentsia and New York Times bestseller worship, which is a bunch of that's the priesthood, right? The academia university worship is the intelligentsia for those who have a college education, right? That's their church, right? That's all lies, right? Like I said, the leading economists are all complete charlatans, like Ben Bernanke that I talked about earlier, the Great Moderation, right? It's called the Great Hyper Immoderation and now collapse, thank God, of the Western capitalist imperial system. So anyway, long story short is what the Arkansas farmers need to do is, like, they're going to be all over. Like, this is going to be everywhere. When they say, well, Americans won't do those jobs, what they mean is white Americans, and like some people that are not white, but they like abide by that idea that like some people think and talk and have ideas and other people work, right? That's not a Chinese idea. That's not a Hawaiian idea. That's not a socialist idea. That's not, and that's why Hawaii, China, this is another litmus test, right? China is not abiding, the capitalism is not running them because they haven't had a crash in 30, 40 plus years. Every capitalist country does. They don't. Why haven't they? Because they're run by socialism. Actually, right? That's one of many data points you can look at. Another thing is Vietnam doesn't have a massive amount of immigration, like just in general. It's not like it's spiked or China doesn't have a massive amount of immigration, but they always have enough farmers. Now they have super advanced robotics, but I mean, even before that, China didn't like run low on farmers. They're not praying to, the Chinese are not praying to, the filial piety. They're not praying to a Buddha or any of their various, they're like bringing the red envelope, on a New Year's Day and going, oh, please, let's have some immigrant farmers, right? Do you know why that is? Do you know why that is? Because, I mean, they have a society that's not based upon, there's a class of people that farms and does work like the Afro-Asiatics that picked the Greeks' olives, like the blacks that picked the cotton for America, like all of India that grew the agriculture and food for Britain, right? They don't have this idea. Even the Irish, right, that were, you grow the potatoes and you do all the work, you build the ships that we colonize the world with. Irish, you can live in North Hull and rust to death you can die in a salt mine, right? But there are some people for whom the world is made and it's their oyster, and everyone else gets to open the oysters. And if we feel like it, will eat you like an oyster, right? Cannibalism was normal in the Euro-Western colonial world as well. And they projected that sin onto everyone else too, like the Hawaiians. That's not the thing that we would do. It's actually part of a commemoration of this. Despite his treachery, it's about honoring this captain, so-called Cook. Anyway, my point is that there's people who work, and there's people who don't work. There's people who, it's this Greek, that's what a Greek philosophy was for. It's to justify that, right? It's like podcasting justifies billionaires not working. Well, Elon Musk thinks so hard. His work is golfing with Peter Thiel and Nancy Pelosi, right, is so hard. That's why he gets paid $200 billion, right? Like Jeff Bezos is worth, $1 million an hour or more, because his brain is just making so many Amazons, right? That like there's ideology, but there's still philosophers. That's what Ayn Rand's anthem and motion pictures screen guide for the preservation of American values, U.S. imperial brainwashing scheme through Hollywood was for, and the Mencius Moldbug is for. So but all Western writers, Ben Bernanke, all of the universities there, especially the economics department, but not just that one, to praise and venerate the imperial capitalist leadership, right? And anyone who says or acts talks about communism too much, you get blacklisted, disappeared, or tortured, or dead. Really, you get really dead, especially if you're like a communist in South America or like somewhere in Africa. You get really dead, like Kwame Ture. So or like a Che, or they try to dead Castro and fail because the U.S. I mean, you couldn't kill Castro. You're not going to beat Venezuela in 2025. So Arkansas, but so what has to happen there is not begging and praying for God to intervene on your behalf. That never worked. You thought that worked because America, the big, more powerful, slightly smarter liberal leadership of the conservatives has invaded an African, an Arab, or an Asian country, stolen trillions of dollars of their wealth, and then give it to you, right? And bailed you out. The Chinese actually bailed American farmers out at various times, or stopped buying and things at various times. So it's not because you prayed hard and you went to church. It's not because, you worked hard. And the liberals have their own nonsense. Like, if we just, we're going to have abundance, or we're going to build this back, we're going to build back better world or some nonsense that doesn't do anything. We're just so moral, right? We liberals, we have human rights and freedom and democracy. Is that what we're seeing? Is it the human rights bombs that's unaliving the children in GAZA? Is that what it is? Right? We're better because, we have more scientists. The scientists under the liberals run CDC and the liberals run Democrats administration that said it was over in 2022, and then Omicron wave hit, or like all these multiple waves every year have been hitting, and literally wrote down that like, well, we don't need to care about any kind of public health. We just need to get elected, right? That's not science. That's not science. The liberals. That's not science either. There might be some scientists. But if the science gets in the way of money and power, the science goes out the window. And the conservatives are like, well, science doesn't exist. It's just God and the Remington rifle and and the fucking flat Earth. But like, science is okay up until we need to make a ton of money and get people killed. I mean, arguably that's worse. That's what it's like. What's worse, Wayland Yutani or some guy with a gun that is praying a lot? I mean, or some guy with some sad conservative from Kentucky that has no immigrants because he voted for racism, and then he voted to get make his country all white, and now it's all white and nobody is doing any work because the white race doesn't do work according to white supremacy and the collective Western ideology of racialized capitalism, right? So I mean that person that believes that was going to work is not as dangerous as a liberal who can control the entire planet by everyone come to America and let's take all the best Indian, H-1B, all the best of Asia. We'll all make bigger atomic bombs and we'll subjugate the entire planet under global imperialism and 800 to 900 military bases and global debt traps and dollar reserve currency and hegemonic soft power and global mind control through telecommunications, networks, satellites, social media, computers, the whole 9 yards. Every thought you think, we'll have it in our hands in Palantir before you. But that's more dangerous, arguably. I would say it's actually more dangerous than some rando guy that's crying about, oh my God, what happened to my farm? I lost all my Mexicans. Oh shit, I don't want to work. Well, part of the problem is, but you know what I'm saying? That's not very dangerous. I mean, arguably that could be dangerous, but it's not as dangerous to every single person on earth. Also, the Democrats threatened to, they actually knowingly shot long-range, multi-hundred-mile missiles into Russian early warning anti-ICBM radar satellites, knowing that there was over 50% chance of starting a nuclear war. So the liberals are actually arguably, certainly now, more dangerous to the earth. Everyone could have died. There was over 50% chance that every single person on the earth, all 8 billion, could have died in December. And the Democrats, Biden administration, all of them, they just said, yeah, it's worth the risk. They said, nuclear war, we are prepared for nuclear war. That was Blinken, actually. I think that's what he said. That's more dangerous than, oh my God, I lost my farm because there's no more Hondurans. That's really racist. That's really pathetic. It's really dumb. It's really ignorant. It's not going to work. But if you get 3 more brain cells, then you start thinking that you can win nuclear war. Not enough brain cells. The liberals don't have enough brain cells to know that you shouldn't fight nuclear war. Or not enough heart cells. I'm not sure which one is missing. It's kind of a coin toss. Probably both. But anyway. What's up, comrade internet? Anyways, long story short, but part of what has to happen, because part of me, I was like, it sucks that the farms are not doing well, but it's kind of like just as an example, right? Like this is something that happened in Hawaii. Like Hawaiians and Chinese both farmed together, and they were called cooperatives. They're called hui, right? Where Chinese in Hawaii in the 1800s, the Chinese came and the Chinese said, "Oh, we'll farm rice and you farm taro, or I'll teach you how to farm rice if you want to farm that." But it wasn't like the Chinese didn't have a bunch of Hawaiians picking all the Chinese rice for them, and the Hawaiians didn't have the Chinese picking all the kalo for them. You know what I'm saying? But when white Americans and Europeans like Dole, like Sanford Dole, like Thurston, right, like Castle and Cook, when those Western American Europeans, even they were not all rich, but they had this idea. Some of them were just working class, or some were even destitute. When they came to Hawaii, they had this idea that there are black people, black slaves, black chattel slaves that were just picking their cotton, right? Or picking their peanuts, or there's some people that work, and there's often they're darker skin, but there's some people that work, and people like us, white people, we don't work, we own, right? And that was how they ran their plantations. They brought Filipinos in, they brought Japanese, whoever, but they owned, and they had banks where they accumulated capital based upon exploiting and underpaying the workers. And the Hawaiian and Chinese actually boycotted the Hawaiian Chinese hui boycotted these Asia and Pacific indigenous peoples, boycotted the white capitalist banks and businesses because they knew that was not right. I mean, it's kind of like something is really not right about that. Like, you shouldn't be exploiting entire races of other people and just believing that you have the right to just be the idea guy. So I'm like, yeah, the idea guy, or I just the guy that like thinks thoughts. I'm like Elon. I just write things on napkins and other people make it for me. And like the work is when I like have a genius idea and I write it on my napkin like a Cybertruck. Like, that's such a great idea. Like, have a low poly, terrible design for one of my vehicles, right? And that was that was $1 billion of Elon work. It's just like drawing a half-assed, low poly, 2 trapezoids in a triangle picture, right? And that's my work, right? Somebody else had to actually figure out how to make that thing work. He just says, I just want it to kind of look like the cars from Deus Ex. I love Deus Ex. I make retro 90s 3D cyberpunk games for a living, and I write the stories and 2D as well. I love that stuff. The work is actually making the models, the painting, and having ideas is part of that process. Having ideas for games is part of the process. But like how, implementing coding, like designing the actual game, that's the work. Having an idea. Oh, it would be really cool to have a cyberpunk game where you can see in the dark. That'd be really cool. Okay, give me $1 million. Like, that's a cool thought. That's not worth $1 million. That's not how John Romero became a great game developer, right? He didn't go, hey, I got this great idea. What if we like go into space and we have like space? What if we like go into space and we have like space? We have like space soldier guys like shoot demons and have like a really big gun at the end of the game. Okay, give me $2 million. That's not like. That's why the actual game developers look up to John Romero, because he's like, he is a kind of rock star in the industry, but he like actually has like worked on, and he has like a lot of skill in the actual game design and game world. He's still working on games to this day. I watch him on Friday. Sometimes he streams and sometimes he shows like actual working on the levels on Twitch, like Sigil and Sigil 2. Like, I watched him make some of that stuff. So like, and it's like, not to say like coming with ideas and then fleshing them out and going, okay, how are we going to make this idea work? Like you have to design all the combat and like how much damage should the pistol do versus the shotgun, and like that takes some time and effort to kind of figure all that kind of stuff out, right? And like to even like write the document and having, if you play pen and paper, a lot of that is like writing things down into paper and into spreadsheets and stuff like that, and into Word documents or Google documents or whatever, right? But just like believing that there's people that just like making decisions about the business, and that's like work, right? Like that's a weird that is unique to Western culture. I would say that's pretty unique to Western culture, where like, you know, and definitely American culture for sure, and a lot of European. Well, our job is, we're just colonizers. We come to India and we take all of the things. We come to Africa, we take all of the gold and we take all the uranium. That's just what we do. That's our job. Like the French, like I work for an NGO where I come and pretend to help people, and then we actually arm the extremists and then get everyone killed, and we steal all the resources after this chaos and the slave markets, and then we bomb with NATO, with the U.S. Clinton and NATO and France, and we come in and we blow everyone up. And that like Hillary Clinton, it's like, one day I decided we should just blow up an entire country, and that was $2 million of work, just figuring out we should blow up Libya. That was really hard work. That was really freaking hard work. That's why I have the Hillary Clinton Foundation, and we have multi-billions of dollars stored up in that. Is because I'm just so hard at work killing innocent people so that the richest people and spoiled brats in the world can have more free stuff. That's not a fair system. That's not a good system. That's not a long-term, that never should have existed. It's not going to exist soon. It's not going to exist soon. It's going to be gone. Thank God. Thank Akua. Thank Creator. Thank Mao. So anyways, yeah, but long story short, so the short story is that there are cracks in the U.S. economy and the job growth is slowing. And that's not good, for people in the United States. Expecting that there are some people that their own, right? The belief that, Ayn Rand in this book, she tells us the story in the anti-communist screed, the pro-capitalist anti-communist little short story anthem, or I guess it's a novel, but it's relatively short. Thank God, I'm not going to read Atlas Shrugged. I can't slog through that much. Racket. It postulates that I can't even go into all of it. But it's like 6 foot tall, brilliant individuals, right, will save communism after communism collectivity collapses society, because when people cooperate, you can't do electricity, you can't have technology, because everyone will think identically, and everyone will get a C. Everyone will do their most mediocre work. There will be no different. Everyone is identical. That's one of these weird things that the West took these ideas from like the Western elites, the billionaire class and the capitalist class. They took these ideas from Ayn Rand because she like, it sounded really good. Like, communism was when everyone looks and sounds identical. They all think the same thoughts. They are basically the same person, right? That's not what it is, right? But that's what the West has portrayed it as. So when everyone is in the same jumpsuit, it's like it's in so much of Western dystopian fiction, from 1984 to the 1984 to even like Brave New World in the THX 1138. Animal Farm, like all this dystopian fiction is this idea of what it's like to be in a not capitalist society. That's, it's the worst system, but it's better than all the others, right? According to Churchill, but it's not. It's the worst system, period. The others are better. It's there's others, and they're better, but part of that is that this idea that like because my brain is so strong. That's one of the ideas in Anthem. Because my brain is just so brilliant, I knew what the teacher was going to say before she said it. A lot of people, like, cause school, there's a lack of high quality public education, so people get bored in school, and then people go, well, I always felt like I was smarter than my classmates. Of course, so anyone who has the slightest bit of ego, which is, how many straight white cis privileged guys is that? Basically all of them, right? Because they've been told that a lot of their life. That, you deserve everything. Like you are better than everyone else because your daddy owns the factory. Because they just, even if you're not told that directly, you just like feel that. So when you go to school, if you have to go to school with other regular people, right? So every Western white guy in particular that goes to school, it's like, why am I forced to be around other equals? I'm better than those people. And then you pick up Anthony and you pick up Ayn Rand. I felt that way. I felt like I was better than everyone else. In fact, I was definitely smarter than everyone else. I was a little bit taller. Well, I mean, that's because, you come from the aristocracy, and then you get fed more than everyone else. And that's why you're tall. The Chinese are no taller than a lot of people in the West, but it's because they were starved for the last long time. The Vietnamese are a lot shorter. That's because they have been starved, especially in the growing 0 to 18 years. Right? Oh, I'm taller than everyone else. That makes me better than them. I'm taller than other people, and my brain is bigger than other people. I have better ideas than other people, and that's why I deserve to run companies. I deserve to run corporations. I should be calling shots, right? And people like me, and like there might be other white guys like me that happen to be 6 feet or 6'2" or whatever. That's actually, there is a breeding program at Stanford where they were actually. That's why some of the heads of tech companies in the United States, like some of the first executives of Hewlett Packard, like 6'5", because they were actually trying to breed taller and taller, like massively tall white men. And also they would breed them with white women engineers because it was believed that you could maximize the quality of the gene pool, right, under eugenicist, white supremacist, social Darwinist Nazi ideology. That's what the Nazis got. It was actually, they got a lot of those ideas was borrowing from the U.S. and California, right? And so they were breeding these taller and taller executives, thinking that would increase the power of the United States by maximizing maximizing the height that somehow also correlated with their genius quotient. Actually backfired and failed. IQ didn't prove what the white supremacists set out to prove, that the white race was better than all other races. It actually disproved it because there was no significant difference. And they just ignored that output, which is also anti-scientific, right? That was all funded by the Western U.S., Britain, liberals and conservatives all were supporting this. They all wanted to see this through. Failed. Nothing has been done about that, by the way. That history is not even taught at Stanford or any of these California universities. They're just eugenicists. And then they just pretend like when it's too embarrassing, they just try to hide it a little bit. Liberals are good at doing that, pretending like they're not racist. Anyways, Arkansas farmers, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to learn that everyone, communism is not when everyone thinks exactly the same thought and society collapses. And, if it's true that, if the capitalists and anti-communists that were led by Ayn Rand, including everybody who also wrote the entire guide how to brainwash the planet through the silver screen. She wrote the motion picture screen guide for preservation of American values. If that's true, that communism will cause economic and societal collapse, why is the country with the biggest communist party on the planet, over 100 million people, the Chinese Communist Party of China, and socialism with Chinese characters, why are they light years ahead? They have supercomputers that can compute in 1 millisecond what would take 100 trillion years for any of the fastest Western computers to compute. They have the world's greatest high-speed rail. They have the best transportation. Their economy is dwarfing everyone else on the planet by light years. They're working on bases on the dark side of the moon. America can barely get their rockets to take off anymore. They're defunding NASA for Arthur C. Clarke's sake. Right? I mean, long story short is, it's disproving everything that the West has ever said, ever, which has always been a lie. But now China is just disproving it all. And that's why nobody can ever learn anything about that in the West. But the West isn't making any video games anymore, so they're all having to play Chinese video games now. So I was talking to some of my friends. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm playing a lot of Chinese video games. I'm watching these Chinese things. I'm consuming Chinese media and Neja too." And because it's like the West is so incapable. Its economy is so collapsing. It's so the state of the dystopia of the capitalist world, the white world, is so dystopian. They can't even produce any more brainwashing material to funnel into the motion pictures and the massively online multiplayer video game and online social media tech. You need to have, the content mill. It's, oh God, I gotta go make some more content. I gotta make some more media. Gotta make some more games and movies. Oh God, but you need that content mill to keep people moving in and new generations coming in and getting brainwashed by Call of Duty, right? People have to come in and watch Donald Duck and worship the U.S. Navy. You gotta have that media come in. You can't expect people to watch Donald Duck again. You cannot have a 17, 22-year-old watch Donald Duck again. You got to make new media to brainwash the world through Hollywood, through the big tech, through Silicon Valley, by having the leading edge. Like, where's the Facebook? Where's the new... Where's the Facebook? It's all Douyin or the latest things. Where's the American robotics? It's all fucking Unitree, Chinese companies. The Boston Dynamics, it's like stealing Chinese robots and like making them do the same backflip 6 times because they can't figure out how to reverse engineering anything except for the half-assed, you know, like TED Talk fucking dog and pony show trick. They don't know how to do shit. It's all garbage. It's all crap. China is annihilating. Socialism and Communist Party is annihilating the capitalism and the U.S. Western white plutocratic capitalist narrative. And people can see it happening. That's why nobody wants to say it too loud, because they want to keep their job until the U.S. and the West collapse. But like, fuck, you know, I don't have any video games to play. There's like Hollow Knight, and that's about it. You know, there's like 2 indie games, and there's 1 interesting horror movie, and there's like, you know, there's like James Gunn. And then there's like a handful of like people that are trying to dig up fucking Superman. But like Superman and Alien Earth, you know, there's a few handful of good, interesting things. But like most of the stuff, the content is all coming out from across the pond. It ain't coming out from the West, you know? They don't even need that. They don't even need soft power the way the West did, right? You only need soft brainwashing media mind manipulation power of Hollywood, mass media, tech, you know, before that, the Bible in print, right? And brainwashing from the pulpit, the opiate of the masses is the cathedral, the priest or the pastor's a conditioning that comes out of his mouth, or the school. Schools in the West are made for brainwashing, not for education. They're for conditioning people into believing that capitalism is the greatest system ever. And then the U.S. and the West are the most moral, human rights and freedom and democracy defending places ever. They're not. School is not for education. It's for conditioning. Ideally, you're as little educated as possible. Until communists actually outcompete you, then you gotta give a little bit. That's the post-World War II era. You can't have massive space missions without some amount of socialism. So anyway, and mass educated people. So the socialism doesn't need mass brainwashing to exist. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not a lie. That's why isn't China better at, you know, I don't know, news and propaganda? Why isn't China get better at trying to, you know, persuasive media, news and movies? Why don't they try to, you know, why don't they get better at the soft power game or something like that? And they don't. The answer is they don't need that. It's kind of like, it's a little bit. It's kind of like, it's like actually that's similar in Hawaiian and Pacific Islander and Asian culture, and Chinese culture in particular. It's kind of frowned upon to talk about yourself and promote and to just like do it like marketing and promotion and proselytizing, and so basically, you know, just like talking yourself up, you know, trying to convince other people to do what you want and think that you're great, and your system, your country, your economic system, your political system, your ideology, your company, you personally, you're the best employee, that kind of thing. Like India, that's one thing that they have, because they have it for thousands of years. They also had a culture that was gurus, and they have a different history than China. When the Chinese culture and the meritocratic, deep 3,500 year civilization, that's like a long held value, which is you don't talk about how good you are. Your actions will actually speak, right? You show how good your cooking is, and people will taste it, and then they will eat it, right? In the West, it's like the proof is in the marketing, right? And in China, the proof actually is in the pudding. You know, it's like if it's good, right? So it works for socialism, with Chinese characteristics, but in general, right? It works. People's lives get better. It produces the world's most advanced civilization on the planet Earth that's defeating all of the West. It's defeating climate change without even barely trying, right? When capitalism, oh my God, what can we do? Let's try a cop-out 28 where we pretend like we care about the environment but don't, and have Exxon fucking host it. It's a joke. China's just like, we're just going to print, you know, more solar panels than have ever been printed on the face of planet Earth in a tiny window of time when the U.S. has been sitting on electric cars and solar panels for a century. We're just going to do it because it's the right thing to do. Because socialism works and our system works, and it's better than yours. Not like in a supremacist way, but it's like it functions. And we're not going to say that we're not going to say you should all try communism, a communist party, and socialism with Chinese characteristics, but for your country. They don't do that, but it's like they don't have to, because it does work. And as everyone comes to see that it does work, more people will realize that's where they have to pivot towards. That's basically the path that they're taking, and it's it's working. That's what's happening, and they don't need that soft power. The U.S. a capitalist, imperialist, racist, unjust system like the United States, Europe, the Western white system, they need to constantly be lying. They need those movies. They need those games. They need those brainwash. They need those mind-altering news reports, social media feeds. They need people using Instagram and Facebook. They need people in their platforms just being bombarded 24/7 with lies because that has to hold their matrix up. They have to hold their Truman Show up. China just lives in the real world. The West has to keep everyone in a Truman Show. And outside the Truman Show of their little made-up world is misery and destruction that's stealing everyone else, so that the people at the top of the Truman Show, fake joke, right? The people in the control of the Truman Show can have champagne on the stolen backs of the apocalypse they've made out in all their colonies, right? But the Chinese system can just live out and be in the forest, and they can be in the water, and everybody can say, oh, you can come visit China. That's why they want you to come visit them and see how that works, like see how great it's doing. And and if you do visit, people the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the eating, right? It's you walk the walk, you don't talk the talk. That's just a saying in the West. Nobody does that. Right? But in China, it's like, come and see what we've done. And when you ride the high-speed rail, when you see that there's $200 affordable homes, when you see that healthcare is essentially free, we have some of the best in the world. When we see that we're curing cancer, we're curing diabetes, we're curing Alzheimer's, like for breakfast, and then for lunch, we're going to deal with climate change. You can come see what we're doing. And if you liked it, think about what you can do to, learn from that. We're not going to tell you what to do. China doesn't have 900 military bases around the world forcing America, Britain, and France to become socialists. At gunpoint. China isn't going to Africa and going, you're all going to die if you don't turn socialist like us, like America going, put the right person in charge, or we're going to send a bunch of F-35s to bomb your capital. We're going to send a bunch of armed military. We're going to take some legitimate issue and then put a bunch of George Soros NED funding to balloon it in and steer it into an imperialist camp so that we get our official elected, right? In a color revolution, right? China isn't doing that to these other countries, right? It's the U.S. that's still trying to do it right now in Indonesia. Like there's legitimate things that are happening, and then there's also Western imperialists getting involved, as they always do, whenever they can. I don't think they will succeed because for the same reason. They're going to keep trying because all the West knows how to do is try to pretend that democracy is happening when they're actually trying to install pro-capitalist imperialist leadership to destroy a country and plunder them some more, right? Kind of like what they did to Ukraine. Pretending there was democracy there, but actually installing Yachts as the guy from Victoria Nuland's own mouth, as she said on the phone when her phone call was intercepted and recorded, and saying fuck the EU and fuck Germany and France, we're going to put our fascist imperialists in charge of Ukraine. So that was, supportive. George Soros also helped with that one. Not going too well nowadays. The West is being completely demilitarized. So, and that's great. It's great. They have nothing left, and they're not going to win any wars ever again. Not that they won very many before. They mostly just did a bunch of killing and genocide and stole everyone's stuff. So, yeah. But long story short, that's basically what's happening. So what can people do? Like, obviously, you can people can take their, wherever they're at, wherever community they're in, and try to build. Right? You have to build different culture inside of this. Like economy is the corporate jobs, the science jobs are not going to come back. Scientists that are great scientists are going to move to China, period. They have most of the top 10 best universities in the world. It's all happening in China. All the breakthroughs, it's all happening in China. If it's not happening in China, things are happening in BRICS, in Russia. They're all growing. Quality of life in Russia is better than in the United States. It's better than in Britain. Most of Britain is like a third world country. France is going to hell. Europe is collapsing. They're horrible places to live. Upper class liberals tell themselves that the US and Europe are great places to live. They're horrible places to live for most people. They're not as bad as some of the poorest countries in the world in Africa, but some of Africa is better place to live than the United States right now. Like Burkina Faso, where they have free housing. Low cost healthcare. Everyone is working together. They're far safer because they're controlling US and French military interventions and funding proxies there. And people are living their best lives there. People are getting people are working together to build their own African collective culture that's basically just going back to what Africa was before colonialism in a lot of ways. And it's working. And the West don't want to talk about that. They want to write about it. But there are African countries and Asian countries that are far better. Some of my Asian relatives are thinking about moving back to Japan or possibly some other East Asian country. Like, Asians are leaving America. They're not coming back. It's ridiculous. They're like, Trump is like, he just raided a Hyundai. He just raided a Hyundai facility. That's why the liberals are more competent. That's why it's kind of good Trump is in charge, because he's destroying the world imperial capitalist white supremacist order. Trump just raided and arrested hundreds of Hyundai employees that the Korean, car company Hyundai brought these employees, their competent technicians, to America because America didn't have enough competent scientists and technicians. And then you arrest the U.S. administration had ICE thugs round them up. It's like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Now you will have no car company. And you want Taiwan to build a TSMC? Are you anyone with the last American dollar is going to be spent trying to brainwash the last 5 Taiwan semiconductor facility, old guard to like, please bring the facility there. The second that you bring the facility there, you're spending $1 trillion trying to get Taiwan semiconductor facility that used to make 90% of the world's semiconductors to control the global technological and computational infrastructure, which is important for the future. But they don't do it anymore. China can do it themselves. They have fucking 1 nanometer atom thick, like Star Trek level. They have like foundation. I just talked about some foundation last week. They have like the Novacula, but not killing people. They have like the Death Star, but like of life. They have like the Life Star. They have like atom thick wafers that are like a quantum leap ahead of whatever Taiwan was working on. It's not even being talked about or written about in the West because it's just too embarrassing how far China is ahead of them. Right, but they're still trying to get. Come on, Taiwanese, bring your factory in Arizona so we can beat China in the leading the technology race in the chip war. It's like it's already lost. What's happening? It's and the last of the $1 trillion of America we spent trying to bring the last Taiwanese. Right after they bring the last Taiwan, the Taiwanese who's like my great granddaddy was literally Hitler. He was literally like Hitler's like adopted godson. Hitler came to Japan and said, "Oh my God, you guys kill innocent people better than me, and I'm not worthy." And then that Taiwanese is like the most baked. I fought with the ROC. My granddaddy fought against Mao, and the most pro-American Taiwanese. Right, they're gonna bring him to America. ICE is gonna like round him up accidentally. Like ICE is gonna like because they're illiterate, right? They're not gonna be able to read his like allergies. And ICE is gonna like give him like a bag of peanuts, right? And then he's like, no, I don't want the peanuts. And ICE is gonna be, you're gonna eat the goddamn peanuts, Chinaman. They're gonna shove it down his throat. They're gonna kill the only Taiwanese semiconductor factory defector in an ICE raid, and that'll be the end of America. And then like it's so self-defeating. I don't even know what to say about this. It's just like, it's not, none of that's good. You shouldn't be racist against Chinese people. You shouldn't be trying to steal other people's entire industries. You shouldn't back fascists, which is what anti-communism is. You shouldn't have backed them with U.S., all the 8 Western imperial countries in the war against Mao. You should have never done any of that. But now that the fact that you're going to completely screw whatever remained of your dominance, not that you could ever get it back because your system is not capable of ever bringing it back because you're capitalist and it's a terrible system that can't build shit. It's just kind of funny. So anyway, I should probably wrap. I'm talking faster and faster, and it's time to wrap up. But what we can do, going back to what people can do, is it's not all bad. Like I said, much of the world is doing better, but like inside the United States and outside of capitalist countries, people can work, and build different culture. Obviously support marginalized people. The indigenous people whose land you're on. If you're in the U.S., you're on stolen land. So there's a colonial problem there, and see what they need, how we can preserve what remains of nature. That you're going to need that land to be productive to feed people. In whatever kind of farming that's not going to be white supremacist, racialized, capitalist farming like all the MAGA farmers want. And it's not, America's not going to be going back to that. That's going to be some soul searching. You know what I'm saying? But the land has to be preserved. If the land is destroyed by wildfires, the land is destroyed by poison and toxins, and indigenous peoples are continually removed from their territories, that's going to be that's going to, you know, there's just an ongoing, you know, GNOCIDE problem with that. There's also the land management problem, environmental problems with that. And then, you know, obviously building whatever kind of work you're doing, trying to do it in a less exploitative, more equal, more win-win beneficial way, whatever that means, right? Like, I mean, as supposed to be cooperative, we are a cooperative, so we don't have CEOs, we don't have bosses, right? Like, I don't expect to be paid because I had a good idea, or even if I have a million good ideas. Like, people, you can like my ideas in Neofeud or Neofeud 2 or Terminus Machina or on these streams. You can like them, whether you can not like them. I don't expect it because I had a good idea and I wrote it down on a napkin and I had pre-existing capital, that's what a CEO is basically. And then it's basically lies, cheats, steals, and gaslights his people. And it tries to beat up on other rivals. Like in Weyland Yutani versus Prodigy in Alien Earth. I don't believe that, like, I should be paid more, you know, for any of that. Like, it's kind of like, if I put, you know, not that I should be paid any particular amount, but it's kind of like people who can work should work and people who can't work should be taken care of. You know, that's the Hawaiian culture, right? There's no like who owns what. You know, it's not like I own this entity. It's kind of like if you can produce something. Like, I mean, I also do some farming. I don't do as much as some people, you know. Holly does a lot of care work, child raising work, education work, teaching work, moderation work on the stream. Because Holly can. Can't do a certain amount because, you know, Holly has partial, you know, some disability. I have some disability. I can't just type straight for more than a certain amount of time, even an hour, or my back is in excruciating pain. So like, I have limitations. Like, I'm partially disabled, but whatever work that I can do, I try to do that work, right? And so that's part of not getting reinfected with COVID is to keep being able to do whatever work I can do while I can. You know what I'm saying? And like, obviously we have to live, unfortunately, you have to build the socialism you have to build alternatives while you live in the dystopian capitalists, you know, all that torment nexus bad world. So we have to interact with that. So we do need some money for certain of our needs. But you know, like, but the goal is to not be doing that in a way that empowers the capitalist class. So that's why I don't work for corporations. Try to not work for the U.S. government, definitely not the U.S. military or all these nonprofits, which are basically just for profit spelled differently. And trying to do is more mutual aid and, you know, have the work and the consumption try to support as much of the solution to these problems as possible, right? And that looks different depending on where you are and what you're doing. In what skills you are and where you are and what you can do. Like, if people are like, oh, I'm going to the ICE protest and still trying to free the West Asian settler colony that's being the people there. All of that is, you know, valid stuff to be doing, you know. But I do think that, like, you know, inside the United States, I'm definitely not for. I don't think that getting rid of Trump. The Trump administration is doing a really good job of screwing things up. I don't think that getting a new administration is going to fix anything. Certainly not a Democrat one. It's not going to fix anything. The problems are way deeper than that. Building mass organizations of various kinds. Not building the Democratic Party. The belief in a bourgeois Western plutocracy-controlled democracies is a problem. Education on that is more important than getting people to support any particular party. I feel a lot of that's where a lot of the elections are there to stop people. Western elections are there under capitalism are there to stop people from doing the kind of organizing they need to do. Right? Literally, everyone I know, whenever there's an election, like for 2 out of the 4 years, everyone disappears from the actual organizations that could actually overturn capitalism. It all disappears to go, you know, stump or argue about which one is better than the other, you know. And that is like over 42 years of my life, I've watched so much wasted energy on that. It's a lot of it is wasted, and that's a brilliant system to make sure that nothing ever changes. Like, I gotta hand it to the liberal and conservative imperial capitalist leaders. That's a genius system. It make, you know, like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, if you give two dogs a thing to fight over, then you can like run past them, you know. And that has worked so well. But that's something that, you know, I mean, obviously we can't stop that from happening. It's actually kind of like if there's really terrible candidates that are not very interesting, that's the best thing. Like if the Democrats are almost kind of turning into Republicans, that's really great, right? Because if it's just like, well, we're gonna become the Demo Republicans. Number one, I already predicted that in Neofeud too. I mean, they basically are. There's almost no daylight between them at this point, other than like one of them is like, well, like if you vote for us, then women and black people will feel better, and like most people don't believe that now because we just watched you commit the Holocaust too, right? So, but the fact that there's barely no daylight means that people are going to give up on American democracy, which is great because it never existed, and then you're going to have to work on more serious change. Grants are all disappearing. It's sad. National Science Foundation, university money's drying up. It's sad. It's bad. That's actually going to help make the real change. That is part of the pain. That's accidental pain. That really Trump did it on purpose, and that's in the long. That's not going to help America get its empire back, because that's not what America. Trump wanted to make America a great, giant place to plunder the earth, right? It's not about right, but in terms of like actually forcing people to make more real decisions about like what they're going to do with their life, right? Well, I'm going to be a good black queer drone pilot for the U.S. empire. And help it steal things from the world, but I'm gonna feel good because I don't know. There was a little bit of representation in the last Marvel movie, right? That was never gonna work. That was the last 20 years. That rainbow empire with a rainbow flag on it, but actually not caring about most of the world's queer people, black, brown, or women people. That was never gonna work. And that's not to say like anti-woke is great or something. No, I'm just saying like. The pink washing and the black and brown and all that other washing, rainbow washing stuff is to make something appear good that's not. All had to go. And Trump is the Republicans, conservatives. They're really good at destroying all those illusions. They're not really good, but they're really good at destroying those illusions. And so people are gonna have to make real choices now, and that's gonna be it's gonna be tough for a lot of people to go. Well, I'm gonna have to really build real organizations, education organizations, community organizations, alternate non-capitalistic economics. I'm going to have to figure out whatever else I got to do. Support indigenous sovereignty, support anti-imperialist action everywhere, real anti-capitalist action everywhere, real land and environmental sustainability everywhere. That's not going to come through working for the EPA. The EPA doesn't even EPA. I watched the EPA rubber stamp the U.S. military dumping thousands and thousands of gallons of jet fuel into our Hawaiian water supply. So that's that was always a joke. That was no change was ever. That's kind of like what if we go to enough COP26, if we go to enough Exxon and fossil fuels funded climate change meetings at the COP 25, 26, 27, that's going to do shit. That was never going to do anything. That's like the environmental equivalent of Western elections, going to COP out 26, 27, 28. That was never going to do shit. The Chinese are like, you want to change the climate? We want to stop climate change. We'll stop it. Don't worry about that too much. You just worry about how you're going to deal with your oligarchy inside your own country. That's hiring cop cities, and it's going to be more brutally putting you down. With more mask off fascism than already was there. We don't worry about the climate change. You're not going to have any economy to burn any fossil fuel anymore because you're going to collapse. America's fossil fuel blueprint, America's fossil fuel output is going to go, America's carbon footprint is going to go down because nobody's going to buy or shop or do anything. Or they're going to do a lot less of it. U.S. military can't steal resources, then the U.S. military's fossil fuel blueprint is going to go down. The U.S. military is pulling out of Asia right now. Nobody wants to talk about that, especially not people who, they make a lot of money getting people to throw money at their broken military weapons and broken malfunctioning jet aircraft investment Ponzi schemes. But that means the U.S. military is going to have a smaller footprint. So that's great. Accident. The U.S. can't maintain its colonies. You don't have enough machines to put gas into to fly your copters and your F-16s and your giant crap aircraft carriers around. Your carbon footprint went down. Hey, that's Donald Trump. Give that man a Nobel Peace Prize. Give him the Greenpeace Environmentalist Award. Your economy collapsing. You don't have any industry producing nothing. So that the total amount of fossil fuel and energy burnt went down. Oh shit! What, using it all in AI though? Okay, well, if AI collapses, then then you get the environmental. Then America will be really environmentally friendly because it has no economy. Anyway, okay, I think that's a good place to wrap up. But anyways, long story short, like there is a lot we can do, but we have to keep fighting against all those interlocking hierarchy of racism, capitalism, and colonialism, as always, in all ways possible, in all places possible, and you know, in all flavors, and you know, there's a lot of work to be done. Like there are a lot of positive things that are happening, but it's mostly like in the gaming world. It's mostly like, you know, the Hollow Knight Silksong is doing real good in the gaming world, and that's good. That's a good bellwether. It's going like, well, the big AAA game industry is collapsing. It's a kind of a microcosm of the entire West. The big central giant capitalist corporate entities are imploding, and smaller independent games. In the game world, the smaller independent games are the ones that are still successful. Smaller independent, like horror movies even, and shows where people that actually like put their all. Like that's why I like Foundation and Alien Earth. And these kind of shows, they happen to be coming out of Apple for whatever reason, but they're kind of like, they feel almost like indie. You know, they feel weird. They're not like a lot of the other kind of shows for whatever reason. So things in which people are actually putting effort and creative and intellectual energy to produce, whether that's movies, TV shows, games, farming, or producing, whatever they're producing. Better education, you know, some kind of like not so colonial, you know, pro-indigenous. I just was watching a video about like pro-indigenous, an indigenous take on actual sacred geometry of Native Americans that actually built extremely complex structures that are like, you know, mile wide, that like track the space and track the precession of the moon. And you know, that was some science that was done, and a lot of this has been done on Patreon. There's Dr. Fatima is a former paid by the United States government or the U.S. with the universities, which is all part of the U.S. Western system. She's now Patreon funding her own channel. And, you know, she's putting out a lot of her own content. Obviously, it could be done better if it was more organized and with a larger backing. But she also did a video on, you know, I'm a native Hawaiian, so she did a video on specifically the colonial project on Mauna Kea and our Hawaiian movement and anti-imperial resistance to that. But like now she's fully mutual aid funded. You know, she's like, you know, cooperative. It's funded, which that's not accidental. This one actually, it's an example. I'm not saying it's great that she lost her job at the university, because I would never wish that on somebody, because that's distressing and really bad. The reason for it is because she was doing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's not a great reason to lose a job. But the kind of accidental silver lining, the result is that like now it's like, you know, it's direct mutual aid. There's more people that are now directly doing mutual aid educational work, as opposed to doing it within the U.S. imperial funded system. And you can't do it without being complicit in GENOCIDE and GAZA, as we learned from Columbia, UCLA, and all those universities, right? So, but it's not just that, you're complicit in the empire, right? But if you actually are doing education outside the entire Western university system, government system, nonprofit, and NGO system, you don't have the strings attached that come with that people don't think about. You know, like you don't think about how your student debt is going to attach strings to you, including pulling you into corporations and the military till 8, 10, 20 years later, right? So if everyone is getting the strings, the puppet strings of empire and capitalist plutocratic control cut by getting fired, even if it's because you were a DEI hire, somebody thought you were, big balls thought you were, the net impact is going to be less people are tied to imperial capitalist governments, universities, capitalist systems, nonprofits, for-profits, academic institutions at all. They sooner or later they would have had to, you know what I'm saying? Because the West is going bye-bye, down the drain. It's better that it's sooner, that there's more people that are building the alternative now, right? Of the Federation of Indigenous Socialist, the Federation of Indigenous Socialist Provinces of Turtle Island, or whatever the future of North America looks like. You know, I'm not saying it doesn't have to necessarily change into that, but it can't be the imperial capitalist global hegemon. So, you know, and anyway, I've been watching a lot of her videos, and they're all very good, especially if you are a scientist, and even if you are a astronomer. Just talking about like positivism and Karl Popper, and that was interesting as well. Falsifiability and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Anyways, I'm just spiraling into various directions. Time to go. Thank you for watching. If you like this education and you appreciate this update, consider supporting us through ko-fi.com/silverspook. As well, you can help us out at patreon.com/neofeud. And at patreon.com/neofeud, you can give us ongoing support, get access to behind the scenes of what we're working on at the Silver Spook Cooperative. As I said, like, we are a cooperative, so we are supported. You don't have to use Patreon, but it's just a way for people to directly support you rather than being supported with the lever of control in the hands of a capitalist corporation, imperialist government, or otherwise, right? So that's why we choose to do things the way we do. You can also buy games of ours to help us out, such as Neofeud. We're thinking about future projects for Silver Spook games like Terminus Machina 2 or potentially Neofeud 3. I'm actually working on a new, possibly it's almost like a hybrid Neofeud Terminus game, but it's kind of like set in the world of Neofeud 2 in a collapsing time, like the Terminus Machina world. And it's probably gonna be like a first-person game, shooter-ish, but like with a bit more thinking involved, kind of like Terminus is the way I envision it, but not in Deus Ex Engine. So that's one project that's already, I'm already working on that with some people. But there's probably going to be more than one future project. But look for that 3D Neofeud 2 set first-person shooter, like Doom engine game, made in the Doom engine. Not making a Doom game, but like it's a game using that engine. Which I've been trying that engine. I've used it for a few things so far. So I'm interested to learn more about it. I just learned how to add music to the Doom engine this morning, so I'm doing a lot of learning right now. Anyways, this book is out of Floating Islands. Don't forget to grab it. If you're a gamer and a reader, this is a great book for you, I think. And Silver Spook Environmental Cooperative, where we're restoring our land and making sure we're food sovereign. We do, like I said, if the farmers don't know what they're gonna do, don't pray to God that you get more immigrants to farm for you. Just get off your butt and farm. Just farm. Stop. That's what we do. Like that Hawaiian is like, you don't need to import other people that look different from you to farm. You just farm. And you could, after you're done farming, then you come in and do some thinking and philosophizing. That's what I do. I go out and I do some farming, and then I come in and I do some philosophizing on this stream or when I'm making Neofeud too. You can read my philosophy. I think my philosophy is better than Aristotle's. I'm just gonna straight up say that. And Ayn Rand's, and Mencius Mobugs. All your best Western thinkers, I beat you all. And then I also farm. You can't even do the first one. You can't even think properly. You think capitalism and supremacy and having some class of people doing all the work is right. I beat you all. I think better than you, and I also farm. When you make all of your Afro-Asiatics farm, you bums. Anyways, so I'm supposed to be done streaming. You can also get, that's some of the work we do. But we also do. Neofeud is the game that does support everything we do here. It is on sale right now. It is an anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-racist game made by I was a solo dev on this. I did the writing, the music, the art, and the program. And that was a lot of work, man. Like, I thought the ideas up in my brain, and then I had to work my butt out. I did more total. I would say I did more total. Spent more total time like painting freaking pictures in Photoshop, and and then doing the code in total, than writing the ideas. Like, that's a lot of the work. That was a lot of work. It was like probably a year and a half straight of just like painting the backgrounds, animating all these characters. That was a lot of work, And I hope people like the game. If they don't like the game, then I'll try to do better. I'm trying to do better in Neofeud 2. It's almost done. I got 100% of the voice acting has at least one line. I'm currently going through it all. I gotta add it to the game, and then there might be some retakes, but there was 140,000 words of dialogue. That's so much work. That was so much work just to write that, to voice act that. I did about 50,000 lines of that, and then the other 100,000 words people had to voice act that. Like, that's a lot of work. That's like people have to like say that word. You gotta say that sentence. I mean, if you know my sentences, I have hard sentences. My sentences are like people who have PhDs in English and philosophy. They sometimes struggle to say my sentences. I'm not joking. I literally know two. I'm thinking of off the top of my head. I have a PhD, and they have a hard time with my sentences. I know I have a lot of made up words, so maybe that's part of it. But but saying those sentences is work. Being able to say, I'm the $6 billion baller, and I'm about to neo-feudalize the I'm going to neo-feudalize the neoliberon plutocracy. I mean, that's so many made up words, you know, and that's a lot of work to do that. So appreciate that work and pay Indie. It's only $4.50 for all of that work. While Neofeud is on sale. Anyways, okay, I'll stop. I'm just like, I'm going too fast. You can also help us out if you can leave even a very short review on on Steam. It really helps us to get the game discovered. Also on itch.io. On itch.io, you can also grab the games like Neofeud and Indigenous Star, Pigeonwick Gun, and Decolonators. And Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Christian culture, critiquing that culture from the perspective of Mary in the Bible. And you can also follow at Silverspoon Games, at wandering.shop, at Silverspoon Games all over the place, at Silverspoon Guy on various platforms, including on Twitter. You can follow Silverspoon Guy and Blue Sky. And you can also follow Holly at Allergic to Blue on various platforms, including Instagram. And Holly is, of course, moderator here, parent with myself of 2 Native Hawaiian children. Holly was just taking a Hawaiian class yesterday. And so that's part of the work, like learning some other languages and other cultures of people, especially the ones that lands you're on, but also learning other languages and cultures of people like in Asia. It's time to learn Mandarin. You don't have to learn it, but you know, like knowing something about other cultures, something real about not just like what they choose to show you is good for mutual win-win cooperation and treating other people as equals rather than exploitable labor. And anyways, thanks to all of our Patreon patrons for your ongoing support. Yeah, please mask up because, hey, guess what? Like I said earlier, and I'll say it again, there's 30 states, the last I heard was 30 states of the United States are increasing in the wastewater of COVID. So please do community care. And yes, mask up. Thank you to all our patrons. Without your support, it's hard to keep doing this work. It's massively appreciated. I'm still talking to people. I'm gonna have more meetings with people on future Neofeud games. If you are a Patreon patron, there's a good chance I'll be more likely to talk to you for sure. If you have ideas about what future Silverspoon games could be. I know I said I didn't mean to throw shade at people who have ideas. I mean, having ideas is great. There's ideas phases, and I'm in the idea phase right now. So anybody who has ideas about what could be made, if you are a Patreon patron, you are in a better position that I might listen to you, especially if you join the Silverspoon Discord. That's where some of the talking happens. So yeah, but thanks to our Patreon patrons for helping us keep this thing going. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And yeah, keep your marriage polish, be excellent to each other. And yeah, have a good rest of your time.